In Pakistan, there exists an invisible industry that keeps thousands of trucks rolling down dusty highways every single day. We're not talking about modern workshops with state-of-the-art equipment. We're talking about men literally working in hell, fixing broken axles, destroyed transmission boxes, and cracked chassis using only basic tools, extreme heat, and methods that will leave you absolutely speechless. What you're about to discover about these operations will shock you completely. Get ready, because the reality of these workers is far harsher than anyone could ever imagine. And wait until you see what happens when they tackle the most impossible repairs. The ending will blow your mind. Along Pakistan's major highways, especially on the route between Karachi and Lahore, there are hundreds of small makeshift workshops. These are precarious structures made from rusted metal sheets, torn tarp pieces, and bricks stacked without mortar. There are no proper walls, no roof to protect from the scorching 122-degree sun, no concrete floor, just packed dirt mixed with oil spilled over the years. It's in this environment that repairs considered impossible in any developed country take place. Have you ever stopped to think about how a truck with a completely broken axle gets back on the road without being towed to a professional shop? The answer lies in pure necessity and knowledge passed down from generation to generation. When a truck breaks down in the middle of the highway with a seized axle or cracked wheel hub, the driver doesn't have the option of calling a specialized tow truck. The cost would be astronomical and the waiting time completely impractical. So he calls the roadside mechanics, men who arrive on old motorcycles carrying a toolbox full of rusty tools and a portable torch. These workers have become masters of the impossible, solving problems that would make certified mechanics in Western countries simply refuse the job. Where are you watching this documentary from? Drop your name in the comments. The repair process begins in an alarming way. The mechanics literally crawl underneath the truck without any kind of safety equipment whatsoever. No certified hydraulic jacks, no safety stands, nothing. They use large rocks, rotting wooden blocks, and whatever they can find on the roadside to lift the 40-ton vehicle. The risk of the truck falling and crushing someone is constant and very real. But they continue because they have absolutely no choice. This is survival, not a career choice. To free a seized axle, they use techniques that no mechanic's manual would ever recommend. First, they pour gallons of burnt oil mixed with diesel directly onto the seized parts. This toxic mixture produces thick black smoke that they breathe without any protective mask. Then they start hammering the metal with heavy sledgehammers, creating sparks that fly dangerously close to their unprotected faces. The noise is deafening, but nobody wears hearing protection. Their hands become stained with toxic grease, but there are no gloves. It's brutal, dangerous, and completely unhealthy work. Every single day, these men put their lives on the line for repairs that pay less than what someone in America would spend on a fast food meal. When the axle finally starts to move after hours of exhausting work, comes the most dangerous part: welding broken pieces together. The cracked wheel hub needs to be welded, but the conditions are inhumane. They use torches fed by gas cylinders without proper pressure regulators. The flame is irregular, the heat is brutal, and they work inches from this flame without welding goggles, without smoke masks, without anything. The ultraviolet light from the welding repeatedly burns their eyes, causing permanent vision damage over the years. Many of these men are partially blind by the time they reach their 40s, a direct result of decades without proper eye protection. If you're shocked by this reality, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more documentaries about extreme working conditions around the world. Turn on notifications because you need to see the next video where we explore even more dangerous practices. The materials used in these repairs are completely improvised. They grab pieces of metal from abandoned trucks, often rusted and weak. They cut these plates using manual saws or the torch itself, measuring everything by eye. There's no precision, no calculations of material resistance, no engineering. It's trial and error, it's empirical knowledge accumulated from watching others do it, it's pure luck many times. And yet, somehow these repairs hold. The ingenuity is remarkable, but the human cost is devastating. The welding is done in irregular layers. The metal melts, forming puddles that drip, creating a seam that looks more like a grotesque scar than a professional repair. But somehow it works. The knowledge is in these men's hands, not in their heads. They know by touch, by sound, by smell when the metal is at the right temperature, when the weld has penetrated enough, when the structure will hold. This intuitive understanding comes from thousands of hours of practice, from countless mistakes, from repairs that failed and lessons learned the hard way. The working environment is absolutely hellish. Imagine working under a 122-degree sun, lying on asphalt that's even hotter, with the heat from the torch adding more temperature, constantly breathing toxic fumes. Sweat pours in rivers, dehydration is constant, but they rarely stop to drink water. Every minute stopped is money lost. The pressure is enormous because the truck driver is right there waiting, losing money every hour, pushing for the work to be done fast. Time is literally money, and these workers bear the crushing weight of that reality on their shoulders. And there's more. Many times these repairs are done at night. When the truck breaks down after sunset, mechanics work with precarious lighting, just 1 or 2 weak bulbs hanging from exposed wires. Shadows distort everything, making already dangerous work even more hazardous. But they continue, welding in the dark, hammering without seeing properly, risking their lives. Accidents happen frequently: crushed fingers, severe burns, metal shards in eyes, backs thrown out from awkward positions. There's no workers' compensation, no medical insurance, no safety net whatsoever. The compensation for this inhumane work is outrageous. A repair that takes 8 to 10 hours of intense labor, that requires impressive technical skill, that puts lives in constant danger, pays between $10 and $20. That's right, less than $3 per hour for work in conditions that would violate every imaginable labor law. It's exploitation in its rawest form, but it's the reality for millions of workers in Pakistan. They accept it because the alternative is starvation. The health effects on these men are devastating and progressive. Respiratory problems are universal. Everyone develops chronic cough. Many have tuberculosis, occupational asthma, and other serious lung problems caused by years of inhaling toxic welding fumes, burnt oil, and metal dust. The vision deteriorates rapidly from constant exposure to welding light without protection. By their mid-30s, most need glasses they can't afford. Burns are so common that they don't even care anymore about the scars covering their arms, hands, and faces. These scars become badges of their profession, permanent markers of their sacrifice. The spine suffers permanent damage. Spending hours lying in contorted positions underneath trucks, carrying heavy tools, hammering with force, all of this takes a terrible toll. Men in their 40s already walk hunched over as if they were 70. Chronic pain is part of life, but there's no accessible medical treatment, no physical therapy, no days off for recovery. They simply work through the pain until their bodies completely give out. And when they can no longer work, there's no pension, no retirement fund, no social safety net to catch them. The hands of these workers tell stories of decades of abuse. Fingers deformed by poorly healed fractures, calluses thick as leather, deep scars from cuts and burns, nails permanently stained by grease and oil. Some have lost fingers in accidents with tools or machines. It's the physical price of a lifetime fixing the impossible. Every scar, every deformity, every missing digit represents a moment where they narrowly escape death or permanent disability. But perhaps the worst part is the complete lack of any prospect for improvement. These men start young, many still children of 12 or 13 helping their fathers. They grow up in this toxic environment, literally. Their lungs develop while inhaling smoke, their eyes get used to welding light, their hands become calloused before they turn 15. There's no formal education, no certified technical training, no career plan. It's this work or nothing. The cycle of poverty and exploitation continues from one generation to the next, seemingly unbreakable. And Pakistani society simply accepts this as normal. Truck drivers depend on these mechanics but treat them with contempt. They haggle over every rupee of payment, complain if the work takes too long, show no gratitude. Society at large doesn't even think about them. They're invisible, disposable, replaceable. If a mechanic dies in an accident, and accidents are common, another quickly takes his place. Life goes on as if nothing happened. The system doesn't even pause to acknowledge the loss. The families of these workers live in extreme poverty. Wives care for multiple children in tiny houses made of unfinished concrete blocks, with dirt floors, without proper plumbing, without reliable electricity. The entire family's monthly income rarely exceeds $150. Adequate nutrition is a luxury, education for children is almost impossible, access to basic healthcare non-existent. Illness often means death because they simply cannot afford treatment. This creates a vicious cycle where poverty breeds more poverty, generation after generation. The children of these mechanics face a bleak future. Most will follow in their fathers' footsteps, not by choice but by necessity. They'll drop out of school by age 12 or 13 to help support the family. By 15, they'll be doing the same dangerous work their fathers do. By 20, their bodies will already show signs of the damage. By 40, they'll be broken men training their own sons to continue the cycle. It's a tragedy playing out thousands of times across Pakistan, and nobody with the power to change it seems to care. The surprising result, if we can even call it that, is that this system works from an economic standpoint. Thousands of trucks are repaired every month using these brutal methods. Pakistan's informal transportation economy depends completely on this exploitation. Without these roadside mechanics willing to work in inhumane conditions for almost nothing, the country's logistics system would collapse. The entire economy is built on the broken backs of these invisible workers. This forces us to reflect on the true cost of things. When cheap products arrive at markets, when freight has competitive prices, part of that savings comes from the exploitation of workers like these mechanics. They subsidize the system with their health, their dignity, their lives. And the world keeps spinning, indifferent to their suffering. Every time we buy something cheap, every time we enjoy low shipping costs, somewhere a worker like these Pakistani mechanics is paying the price with their body and soul. There's no government oversight of these operations whatsoever. No safety inspections, no penalties for unhealthy conditions, no labor protection. The state is completely absent. International organizations talk about human rights and decent working conditions, but those words never reach the roadsides of Pakistani highways where men literally risk their lives every day for a few dollars. The disconnect between international labor standards and ground reality is absolute and shocking. The tools these mechanics use are ancient and dangerous. Wrenches so worn that they slip constantly, causing injuries. Hammers with loose heads that could fly off at any moment. Welding equipment with frayed wires and faulty connections that electrocute workers regularly. But new tools are impossibly expensive, so they continue using what they have, accepting the increased risk as just another part of the job. Safety is a luxury they cannot afford. Weather conditions make everything worse. In summer, temperatures regularly exceed 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The metal they work with becomes so hot it causes immediate burns on contact. In winter, working with frozen metal in near-freezing temperatures without proper clothing is equally brutal. During monsoon season, they work in mud, with water pooling around them, creating electrocution hazards with their exposed electrical equipment. There's no seasonal adjustment, no weather-appropriate gear, no consideration for human limitations. The toxic exposure these workers face goes beyond welding fumes. Old trucks often contain asbestos in brake linings and gaskets. The mechanics handle these materials without protection, breathing in fibers that will cause cancer decades later. Heavy metals from batteries and old paint contaminate everything they touch. Chemical solvents used for cleaning parts damage their skin and organs. It's a toxic cocktail of carcinogens and poisons that accumulates in their bodies year after year. Mental health is completely ignored in this community. The constant stress, the pressure to work fast, the fear of accidents, the worry about feeding families on inadequate income, all of this takes a psychological toll. Depression and anxiety are common but never diagnosed or treated. There's a culture of toughness that prevents men from admitting suffering. They bottle up everything until they break, sometimes violently, sometimes quietly. Suicide rates among these workers are high but unreported. In the next video we'll show another side of this brutal industry, the illegal foundries where they melt metal from old parts to create new replacement parts. The conditions are even worse, with workers, including children, exposed to temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit without any protection. It's a glimpse into an industrial hell that most people don't even know exists. Don't miss this shocking documentary. Until the next video, and remember, the world functions at the expense of millions of invisible suffering workers.